怒りを叫べ悲しみを叫べ魂を叫べ今ここで叫べ
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Yokai Delinquents podcast. I am Sean, bearded Kappa Litton.
Jerry Robo Tengu Smith. What's up, Sean? How's it going? It feels like it's been forever since we've done this, but it's only been a week.
I can tell you have a lot more energy than I do today. And that's great, because one of us needs to bring
that first sip of coffee really brings you home.
Just all the endorphin, I don't fucking know. All the coffee stuff entering your brain, making you all Jerry times.
Yeah, get those good endorphins. I think it's really just been like there's so much stuff that's been going on as far as like movies and anime and shows that like I don't know, I feel like I've consumed so much of it that I'm like, oh man, Sean, I need to talk about this and this. Oh, and this too. Oh, and this. And like, yeah, it just feels like it's been real busy here lately.
It's been for us, as our good listeners should have listened last week to our anime breakdown of the summer season. We definitely discussed a lot with that. I mean, we could talk all damn day about the 27 manga that come out every week that I'm reading, at least.
Nice. I know.
And then, Disney Plus is absolutely destroying it with their television and movies. It's a good thing to be complaining about, but my God, yes, there's a lot to consume, and I'm loving every minute of it because it's about the only thing keeping me sane from this fucking schedule changing I keep having at my job. It's just destroying my sleep schedule. But it's almost over, hopefully, and
hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll be good. I'm looking forward. As of this recording, it'll be. When this comes out, I already would have gone, but as the time recording, I'm super excited about going to yet another convention this weekend. So,
oh yeah,
I got our good buddy Larry's Not Just Another Comic-Con, and it'll be the week after this one. I'm sure I'll have a little bit of stories to talk about. It's a one-day con, and Larry's is still just it's a nice low-key chill con. There's always some good vendors, always good people. Not always the busiest show, but I always have a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Larry's convention was pretty great. He put on a pretty heck of a show, and it's great because it came from almost out of nowhere, and I think it was well needed because I think it was at a time that River City Comic Con stopped happening, so he had to pull out all the stops and start his own convention, and it's been growing. It's been pretty successful. It's a really fun convention for Central Arkansas,
and because it's a horror themed convention, which again you're always gonna get this crowd who just see a convention and like, oh well, surely it's what I want it's gonna have a shit ton of comic book vendors and all no, it's not just another Comic-Con because it's a horror convention with and he has we got a couple guests coming in. We got the guy who replaced the lead in at least in one movie, I think, in Pinhead from the Hellraiser series is going to be there. Of course, I don't have any of this information in front of me, but and an actress from the Demon Knight franchises. So, I'm looking forward to. There's always good horror guests, and I'll be up there in cosplay promoting our channels and trying to sell off some of that collection I've talked about getting rid of. Hopefully, we'll sell some Funko Pops.
So, I'm assuming Doug Bradley was the first Hellraiser, right?
Yes, that's the original. And this guy, he did it was like one of the recent, damn near straight to DVD or straight to streaming as it is these days. I forget. I mean, I could.
So I've got Jay Gillespie and Paul Taylor.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up Facebook real quick. But what do you got going while I search for that?
Oh man. Just fucking work all day long and then try to consume as much media. I've actually, I think I mentioned on the last episode, been getting back into Final Fantasy 14 and been trying to level up my paladin, getting ready for this new expansion to come out. So yeah, I am all on board for all of that.
Oh, very
Uh,
cool. Gaming wise, and okay, I got it real quick. It is Paul T. Taylor from
yeah.
Hellraiser Judgment, as well as Amelia Kincaid from the Night of the Demons are going to be the two
Ooh,
guests we're going to have for this 1 day show. Hopefully, nothing
cool.
has gone. We have heard no subject to change yet, but it's always there.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, gaming wise, I haven't been doing much because my work schedule has just screwed up any and all activities. And those who
Hmm.
follow me on my Facebook know my drawings have been coming a little slower, but I've been trying to knock them out a bit more. And
Yeah.
but if I can pimp my personal channel, Bearded Kappa Productions, I did start a Let's Play series.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm playing the original, the original Fantasy Star series, Part 4, on the Sega Genesis collection. It's one of lesser known turn based old school RPGs. So, yeah, go check out that once you're done listening to us.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I haven't picked up any new games in a while. I've really been fighting with myself on picking up Monster Hunter Stories 2.
Yeah.
Um, I did snatch Skyward Sword for Steph though,
Oh,
so
okay.
she's been having late nights playing that lately, and I've actually never played it, so it's kind of cool to see how the game is,
Right.
for the first time ever,
Yeah.
especially on the Switch.
Yeah, I know you were talking pretty heavy about Monster Hunter Stories 2, and as
Mhm.
big of a Monster Hunter guy as I am, yeah, and I played the demo. It's yet to convince me to drop that money on it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, man, my biggest thing is like it's all of the freaking variant monsters and stuff that I want
Yep.
out of Rise, and I feel like that's gonna be my fix for it. They have freaking you can get Grimclaw Tigrex for crying out loud, Sean.
But can you get a Pompadour?
Unfortunately, no, and that's probably the biggest selling point for me at this point, anyway. So let's be honest.
Right, right. Well, man, we got some shows, or a show and a movie we wanted to definitely discuss up today. Because,
Right. And it's interesting, like where do you want to start with this? Because I think like in terms of like how they originally wanted to do their schedule, Loki was supposed to come after Black
yes.
Widow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, was Black Widow supposed to come out before or after Winter Soldier? I think it was supposed to come out
Before.
before, right? Yeah,
Which,
yeah. So that's
spoilers ahead,
crazy.
we're going to discuss the after credit scene.
Yes.
That was supposed to be the introduction to a specific character, which we'll get into here a little bit
Right.
later. But ended up debuting in a different show, which is still, it's
Hmm.
still introduction. But
Hmm. Hmm.
again, building the layers of what the MCU is going towards. So yeah, okay. Well, we're talking about Widow now. Let's go ahead and talk about Black Widow.
Yeah, yeah. So this movie takes place after Civil War, right?
Right.
So she is essentially on the run from, well, I guess the U.S. government because Shield's not a thing anymore. Our opening scene is actually really good, and it kind of confused me a little bit because I was like, "There's no way she is that young." But it was what 1994, right, or 95?
In the open, yeah, I think it was something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And you get this glimpse of uh, her childhood with her sister and her parents, and then you find out that it's not really what it seems. If anybody knows these characters, you know that they're like secret agents and stuff like that. And apparently it was their mission to go to the United States and infiltrate and steal some kind of information. And then they were found out, so they had to flee the country and go back to their lives. And it was kind of this like really like prominent moment in Natasha's life because she knew what was happening, but her younger sister didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
But because they were put through this program of becoming agents. So essentially, they get back, they get to an island. I want to say like, what did they landed on like Cuba or something like that, and
Yeah.
then were
Something.
met by the secret organization for Russia, and they were all kind of put back into their own like um, little organizations and stuff. But all of the characters that they introduced in this were phenomenal. David Harbour was a real standout. Same with Florence Pugh. Like,
Oh yeah, she
man,
was. She definitely stole the show for a lot of people, and I
yeah.
100% agree with it too.
Hmm.
Yeah, David Arbor as Red Guardian Alexei. He was great. He's and just
Hmm.
like everything he does, where we seem to be big fans of. Even Hellboy, you fuckers out there. I don't care what y'all
I
say.
know,
Rachel Wise as Melina, even though like she
man.
disappeared for a good chunk of the film, but when
Yeah,
she came back, strong. It was just
yeah.
like you said, an outstanding cast, as well as just like a bunch of other like as we get into it with the widow program, basically
Hmm.
that her
Hmm.
sister went through, Yelena, and how she kind of like I don't have a problem with this because the gas made sense,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know, there was something about it that felt kind of like really sudden, but I guess there was no way to kind of like that
Mm.
had to push the story where it
Oh yeah.
just like she just suddenly got smashed with it, and we're like didn't really find out what the hell it really was until a while
Mm.
later. But that's well, again, it was really more about though just the introduction of her and Scarlett together, bringing them back together,
Hmm.
which was done really well. I think Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh had a great chemistry on screen.
Oh
It
yeah.
truly felt like bickering sisters at times.
Hmm. Yeah, it was really well done, and it's kind of it was an interesting thing, right? Because you see from the beginning that they're a family, but they're not really a family at all.
Right.
And whenever you kind of get into it, it kind of sets up this thing of like getting the band back together, how they have to get Alexei out of prison and go find Melina and everything, and they just kind of have this point of contention of like, you let them do this to us, because they still kind of like treat them as the responsible adult that they should have been as their parent,
Right.
sort of because if they had not gone back to these programs, then none of this would have happened. But Alexei being the big outstanding nationalist to fucking Russia that he is,
Right.
like he's like, oh yes, you've killed so many people, you're so good and famous, and she's like, oh, my daughter's become an Avenger. That's amazing. And the best gag is whenever he's always asking her like, does Captain America ever talk about me? Like we were
Right.
like, big villains, and it was pretty great. They had that scene whenever you first see him in prison, and he's like arm wrestling all these dudes,
Right.
and he's telling us a story about him and Captain America, and this fucking huger than life dude pops up, and he's like, Captain America was definitely on ice during this time, and he's like, like it's too good.
Did you catch who that big guy was?
Is he was it the grizzly bear?
Yeah, Ursa Major.
Okay.
That because they even
Yeah,
call
yeah,
him, they
yeah.
refer to him as like I think they just call him Bear, but it's since
Uh,
been kind of confirmed whether they're gonna go forward with the character or not.
yeah, yeah,
The actor in the studio has like confirmed that yeah he was Ursa Major, who is a
yeah.
like the actor's kind of playing it up. Hey, you got to get them, you got to
Mhm.
get those that con attendance.
Right,
Because if you want to
right.
get technical, that
Uh-huh.
makes him the first mutant in the MCU.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
like,
and what's funny is I glanced through an article on that,
yeah,
and I didn't really think about it, and until we were talking about the scene until just now,
yeah.
it didn't really click in my brain that that's who that was.
Right, right. Because it's
Yeah.
Loki, and I
Mhm.
thought about that for a second because and it's only because they recently when I was still reading the current Avengers run, there was a good
Mhm.
arc with them with this the Red Guard in it, so that's why it's kind of fresh in my mind where it's just a vodka drinking bear, and
Right.
he called him like Big Bear. I was like, I wonder if that was, and then I saw the article with the actor talking about it, and like yeah, he was Ursa Major, and although if Marvel ain't gonna call him it, it ain't official, but he's really playing.
Right.
Hey, man, run that con. See, he's about to make a lot of money running them conventions again. So, but
Mhm.
cool little Easter egg that they threw him in there like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, you're not kidding. That was a huge fucking actor. Uh,
Yeah.
and the other big character in here, which apparently has been very divisive amongst fans, surprise,
Yeah.
surprise,
Right. Right.
Taskmaster is in this
Hmm.
film.
Yes.
Not quite. I would say not like I. I was completely fine with what happened with Taskmaster, and I don't know if we want to
Right.
get into like super spoiler details because the movie, as of recorded, has
You
been
know,
out a couple weeks. I don't know if we can just give a spoiler warning and just go ahead and talk about it.
right. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Essentially what it turns out to be is you hear uh Natasha and Clint always talking about oh wow, I just spaced on the place.
Uh,
Where were they?
yeah, you're not going to get me Morocco, maybe. I don't know. They're the,
Budapest. It was
Budapest. There it is.
Budapest.
There it is.
Okay. So had a little space for a second there. So anyway, they're always talking about Budapest. And I think he always like which was kind of weird what it ended up being.
Yeah.
Because I think it was more of like a whimsical point of whatever. Uh and it turns out what happened is Natasha, before she wanted to actually join Shield, she had like unfinished business, and her unfinished business was the whole Widow program and taking out the person that leaded it, named Dreykov. Well, they rigged his building with explosives, and they had to confirm that he was there. And Natasha saw his daughter go up there and was basically like, "Oh, well, if his daughter's up there, then he's definitely up there." And against her, best wishes, she had him blow up the building because she felt that that was the only way to get rid of Dreykov.
Right.
So we find out pretty early on, that Yelena is, or is it Yelena, is teaming up with Natasha, and they have this serum that's gonna like take a lot of these widows out of it because they've essentially been mind controlled. Which later on we find out is a program that Melina helped orchestrate. But they have a special agent that they send after Natasha, and that's the Taskmaster. And so if you know anything about Taskmaster in the comics, it's this hired mercenary that a lot of times he is hired to train goons. He's like trained AIM, Hydra. He also is like a professional hitman, and he has this ability where if he sees anyone like their fighting style or moves or anything, he can perfectly copy those. So it's kind of like hinted in the trailers and stuff. He's got a shield, using it like Captain America, and there's like other forms of fighting. And the first time he fights Natasha, it's like matching move for move, right? Like a mirrored image and everything. Well, later on, we actually find out that Taskmaster is really Dreykov's daughter that didn't quite die, that he had reprogrammed into this Taskmaster project. And I think that just kind of set a lot of people off on, not getting that whimsical, like, silly version of Taskmaster that they all like wanted. But I mean, we could see from the trailer that it was just going to be kind of like that, Stone Cold Terminator-esque, like find you and destroy you type of person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I honestly, I think everyone. I'm a file say it, and this is just the vibe
Yeah.
I'm getting. I think most people are just mad that it turned out to be his daughter, that it was
Yeah.
a woman. I think that's most of it because the fight scenes, the mimicry of the attack, all that was there. The hood, the skull face, everything was there.
Mhm.
Then it turned out to be a girl, and I think that's what most people had the problem with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it seemed like
And I think it was
mostly.
perfectly fine. I think
Mhm.
like the action was top notch. The stunt person in the suit was badass. And that's also the
Mhm.
thing about this movie. This was a straight up, just action flick, and
Oh yeah.
it
Oh
brought
yeah.
the action. The fight scenes were really good. Especially like just I think the fight of the movie was damn near in the beginning. What was with Natasha and Yelena just saying hi
Hmm.
again for the first time in years and beating the absolute shit out of each other in that
Hmm.
sequence.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I didn't even realize, I think, like that they were in Budapest. I'm pretty sure they flashed those giant fucking letters in front of the screen that said Budapest for that. My mind probably just didn't register that.
Right.
And like whenever they were in the safe house, she's like, "What kind of gun does that?" And it was arrow marks from whenever Clint and Natasha were there last.
Right.
And like another great thing about Yelena and Natasha, I really loved that scene whenever she like called her a poser and she she like basically broke the fourth wall about her like always doing that pose where she like jumps down and like is like kind of almost in like a squatting position with one leg extended and then flips her hair or whatever. And then it's funny because Yelena does that like later on. We're gonna see how many different ways I can say this name by the end of this episode, by the way, because I think that's like the third different iteration.
That's all right.
But yeah, no, that was pretty great for her calling that out. But and then the last plan that they had, the last little hurrah after they get the family back together, I thought was really executed well. Sometimes you kind of have this thing. It's like, well, wait a second, this doesn't make sense because of this or something like that.
Right.
And I thought it was really well done, and like the end results of it were really well executed too. And I kind of like this thing where it's like, they're not trying to kill the widows because they know that they're all like mind controlled and everything, and it's just like all the result of this, one really bad dude who's just trying to control people for his own gain and everything. So it was really nice to see them like finally get into him and then see how they deal with Taskmaster and all of that. And yeah, perfect action, great choreography, and the fucking writing in it was just so well done. All the dialogue and everything was great. Just really enjoyed this movie, and I kind of went into it like it's been what, a year and a half before we had a Marvel movie in theaters. Like,
Right.
let me just say, before the movie even really got kicked off, when that fucking Marvel marquee popped up, I got fucking goosebumps, man. Like, I was already up in my emotions. I was like, damn, that's what that feels like. I forgot.
Yeah, I didn't go see it in theaters. We went ahead and just bought it on Disney Plus, but it was still very enjoyable. Yeah, but I could imagine being in the theater, hitting that Marvel marquee.
Yeah, yeah. I had my two fucking ballpark franks. I was like chomping on and everything, and then the theater just goes fucking silent, and you have that. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's that good. But yeah,
yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
it wrapped up in a huge finale, heavy on the action. Nice tie-in with Yelena's. It's a very good vest. Has a lot of
Yeah,
pockets,
yeah.
and
That was
that
good too.
nice tie-in to the vest that was in Infinity War and Endgame,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
which was great. And again, like I said, this movie's release now. One criticism of the film, and I do agree with it.
Mhm,
It didn't take it away anything, but it would have been nicer. Is this should have
mhm.
came out a few years ago.
Oh yes.
This should have come out before Infinity War.
Oh yeah.
Why it
Yeah.
took so long? Who knows? I mean, maybe there was reasoning. Johansson was doing a lot of movies after
Mhm,
Black Widow
mhm.
got more and more popular through these other films. But if for
Right.
whatever reason it didn't come out, again, it doesn't take away from it. But I do agree with that.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it would have been nicer to see her get her first movie before the
Oh my
Avengers.
god. Yeah, if they would have, it would have been so perfect if they would have released it right after Civil War where it fell in
Yeah,
line,
yeah,
I just hate that it took them so long to get this movie out there and everything. But I guess at that point, they were really trying to, well, I mean, seeing it, I don't even feel like it would have conflicted with their schedule. So I was gonna say it like they were really trying to get Captain Marvel out there and everything
right.
before Endgame happened and everything. But yeah, that was not even really like in the realm at that point.
Now, last, because one thing I want to bring up too, because I had to see somebody point this one part out as opposed to what makes it go against coming out later or earlier,
Uh-huh.
but I completely disagree. Now, last spoiler warning: I'm about to bring up the after credit scene.
Okay.
Okay, last spoiler. There's your chance. Go watch the damn movie and come back to us. Uh, After the credits, we got a scene that takes place after Endgame because it is
Yes.
at Natasha's grave, and
Hmm.
it shows uh, Yelena
Hmm.
mourning out there, and up comes Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Valentina
Hmm.
Allegra Del Fontaine, in
Yes.
what was supposed to be her original debut.
Hmm.
Talking to her, which we've seen since. Well, it came out first with Falcon and Winter Soldier of her recruiting U.S. agent,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now
John
we
Walker.
see that Yelena's already working for her at this point,
Hmm.
giving her a new mission. So we kind of got the potential for Dark Avengers kind of building up there, which
Right.
is really cool. And someone pointed out, well, it had to come out after Endgame because we would have saw that. Well, no. Now imagine this: you got this movie a few years ago where Yelena's already been introduced, already loved, great, ties into the movies. After Endgame credits, we get this scene. We get her back.
Hmm.
After not
Right.
seeing her a little bit, and they're showing the tie-in of where her character is gone. And I think that's just as impactful and just as
Oh
good
yeah.
as showing, where they're leading to with the like we got there's so much speculation, especially due to the what we're about to about next here in a minute with
Yeah.
Loki about where the MCU is going. But with you, we
Hmm.
got U.S. Agent, which is a dark Captain America. We have the
Hmm.
potential if Yelena went back to kind of her assassination roots.
Hmm.
We have a new widow of sorts. So, and there's all kind of like possibilities you know, of what Valentina's doing is putting together that kind of an anti-Avengers group, that's doing, which in the comics it was run by Norman Osborn, but I don't know where his rights sit right now with the MCU. So I think they're kind of using her for that role.
Yeah, there's like for me, it's always a toss up of like the teams. Like it kind of looks like they're doing a mix up.
Yeah.
I had somebody that was actually in the film sitting next to me that it said something about Thunderbolts, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't really match the profile of Thunderbolts because those people are essentially kind of like doing this against their will.
Right.
They're like that team of convicted villains that like if they don't fall in line, they get blown up or whatever.
Yeah, it's Marvel's
Um,
Suicide Squad, basically.
yeah, yeah. And so I was kind of shooting a little closer to Dark Avengers or US Avengers, which
Oh
essentially
yeah.
is the straight up like, you work for the United States government. Basically what was it General Ross was wanting from the get-go, right?
Right.
Was her Secretary Ross, I guess, in the films and everything. Um, but yeah, it was like essentially what he was, and it kind of makes sense because Ross was on the U.S. Avengers team as the Red Hulk, so I'm very intrigued to see where else they go because just based off of all the shows and stuff we're getting, it almost seems like they're kind of like spiriting two teams, right?
Right.
You've got this Dark Avengers US Avengers team, but then you also have like the very subtle Young Avengers team that they're kind of like sort of bringing in that we don't necessarily know that we're gonna get. But I mean, come on, they've brought in like four of them at this
Yeah.
point. So
There's so many. Yeah,
yeah.
and that's because Marvel already said they're doing 5-year plans, basically,
Mhm.
more or less. Instead of building up a 10 years of Thanos, we're going to
Right.
get 5 years of a build up of a lesser threat. So I
Yeah.
could actually see them kind of throwing together a Young Avengers or Champions versus, say,
Mhm.
a Thunderbolts or a Dark Avengers, like someone else trying to fill that void with, of course, one of them having nefarious intentions.
Right, right. And my main thing is that I like it would be too difficult, I feel like, right now for them to turn this team with the two members that they have announced so far into villains, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I mean with like what happened with them throughout the movie and the show that they have been in, like, they kind of had redeeming qualities or redeemed themselves or weren't even like considered as like a villain in whatever they were in. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they do with them. I mean, and with what they've been in and where they've been, we may not even get like a movie. It may just end up being like a show or something.
Oh, absolutely.
So
That's
yeah.
possible. Yeah. From what we've seen so far, like with how desperate U.S. agent. I can't think of his real name right now.
John Walker.
John Walker, thank you.
Yeah.
Wanting acceptance, he's easily being manipulated.
Oh yeah.
And with the aggression Yelena went was kind of throwing at Valentina, it almost feels like it's against her will or she has no other options. So
Hmm.
yeah, I could see a kind of a reluctant villain team being built up,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
with the events of Loki, that may not even be in the immediate future.
Oh yeah.
And if that
Well,
wasn't a good enough segue, I say we roll. Oh, you got something else? I was
oh,
trying to
I had
segue.
one more thing
Okay, that's
that
cool.
you
Cool.
tried. You
Preemptive
fucking
segue.
tried.
Preemptive segue. I tried, fucker.
But I will give one last little spoiler for the end scene is Valentino did also hint at you want to know who's responsible for your sister's death and showed her a picture of Clint Barton.
Yeah.
So and we've got the Hawkeye series coming up somewhat soon.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess we can assume that at least John Walker and Yelena are going to show up in that series.
Yep.
And also we've got Kate Bishop, who presumably is going to take over the Hawkeye mantle. I like to make a lot of suggestions and speculations on what's going to happen before the show comes out, or before we even see a trailer in this case. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing both these characters reappear in Hawkeye if that's going to be a thing. Or I mean, it could even be a thing of like, she didn't even like contact her about like the team necessarily, but just going after him in general, maybe.
Yeah.
But I
Like
don't
I don't know. To me, it felt like they had already probably been doing some business. It was very
know. Hmm.
familiar, and Yelena was very annoyed at her presence. So,
Right.
but yeah, you're right. It could actually be in there because again, they've confirmed Kate Bishop in Hawkeye.
Right.
So again, yet another Young Avenger champion potential right there.
Right. Right.
all
Yeah.
all building
Now,
up to the future.
now, now we can go over since you mentioned the future.
I tried. I tried. Yes. The 6 episode season of Loki has come and gone. The
Yes.
highest viewed of the three Marvel shows since Marvel started these, with WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now Loki.
Hmm.
A fantastic show loaded with just so many damn Easter eggs, references,
Right.
and hints to the future, and taking everyone's favorite villain and making him a sympathetic character, and I think doing it very, very well.
Yeah, they absolutely crushed it, and it's interesting, right? So the events of Loki take place after Avengers Endgame, where they go back through time to collect all of the Infinity Stones. While they're trying to get the Tesseract, it ends up in the hands of Loki from Avengers 1, and he disappears with it. And we were kind of left with that, open thought there of like, what happened to that Loki? Like, what kind of mischief did he cause? Well, this opens up almost immediately after. In fact, they show that entire scene of the
Yeah.
events that happened in Endgame. And, he grabs the Tesseract, pops up in a different, like, planet or universe or something, as far as we know. Um, and all of a sudden, this fucking portal, this door opens up, and people step out of it, and they just tase the shit out of him and bring them with him. Finds out whenever you go against your destined actions, and we know that he did because we know his fate in the Avengers MCU.
Right.
You become this thing called a variant where your time stream splits, and we learned a lot of that from the ancient one from Endgame, whenever she was talking about like the time streams and how like, which is why Steve Rogers had to put the Infinity Stones back to where they originally came from.
Right.
So there's this organization called the TVA, and they are essentially tasked with keeping up with the sacred timeline, which is the main timeline. If they have any kind of variants like Loki, they apprehend them, and they are subject to pruning. And TVA stands for Time Variance Authority. So they're tasked with keeping the timeline pure, as to say.
Right.
Yeah, and you just from the first episode, like I don't trust people who say like watch the first episode, couldn't get into it or something like that, or
Right.
people that were saying that the first episode of this was boring, because literally it was fucking so much information thrown at you all at once with
Yeah.
so much cool shit, you know, happening. You get Owen Wilson in the series pretty early, and he is Mobius M Mobius, um, which is, you know, kind of like your detective type that doesn't really take anything from anyone. He's just like, and he's like researched Loki's, you know, like throughout time, and knows all of his shenanigans and what he does. You also get introduced to Hunter B-15, who is Wonmi Masaku. If you're familiar at all to Lovecraft Country,
Right.
she played Ruby in Lovecraft Country. Phenomenal character. She had an amazing story arc. It was so well done. Like I'm a huge fan of hers after that. Like
Right.
so good. And then you also get introduced to Ravonna Renslayer, who's like the director of this whole thing, the TVA, and she kind of like, you know, chooses who goes on what mission, stuff like that. And I'm gonna butcher this name, but she's played by Gugu Mbatha Raw.
That's good. That's how I
Yeah.
would say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an
So-
amazing
so-
name, by the way, too.
Yeah.
I love
yeah.
that name.
And then we get introduced to something kind of interesting. They're kind of like icon or mascot of the TVA is an anthropomorphic clock called Miss Minutes that's animated and voiced by none other than Tara Strong.
Yes, my voice actress crush.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
So,
an amazing voice actress and, quite frankly, a very beautiful woman.
Oh yes. So, you know, just getting into the first episode, it's already this like all-star cast of characters that are just, you know, set in their roles and working for this TVA agency. Loki's like constantly trying to you know, scam his way out of this. They put a collar on him, and what it seemingly does is reverses your actions or something. So anytime he tries to run off, they just like hit rewind on this, and he ends up right back to where he is.
Yeah,
and
it's
everything.
like it rewinds time for that person only. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a unique. Like, I mean, with a whole time corporation that they are, it's a pretty interesting invention that works just perfectly well with the setting.
Oh yes. Yeah, and so we kind of get left on the first episode with this question of there's somebody out there that's messing with the timeline, that keeps eluding Mobius and the Timekeepers, and you know, I'm gonna go into spoiler territory here. It ends up being a Loki, which Mobius talks Renslayer down from purging Loki, and basically talks her into like, hey, you know, maybe if he teamed up with us, he could help us catch Loki, because you need a Loki to catch a Loki, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's in the I think at the end of the second episode that we actually find out, and I think this was like heavy speculated on, that we were going to get alternate Lokis and everything. But the first Loki that we get is a lady Loki who is redubbed herself's name as Sylvie. She's played by Sophia DiMartino. I don't think I've seen her in anything. But she quickly, like, you know, because of the internet and how fast people work, realized that, oh, this is how they're bringing the Enchantress in, as a lady Loki, which is really clever. And I thought it was really well done, because, you know, when we first start running into people that could be this Loki, it's like they're like mind controlled or something like that. So yeah, it's like just kind of kicked off from there, and just went into high gear. And they even have a scene where they're kind of going through all the other variants of Loki, and like it's just so good. they have the frost giant Loki, which he would have been if Odin hadn't adopted him. They even had a football champion Loki,
Right.
which which was great. So you kind of get the sense of like, man, we could get some more Lokis and stuff in this. And essentially where they start going with this is like, kind of into the psyche of Loki. A lot of like him trying his old stuff and then it not working. Him realizing that he's part of this like, bigger picture and stuff like that. And just, they send him through this reel of his entire life, all the way up until his death, like his mother's death that he was essentially the cause of, and then his death trying to save his brother and everything, and then like even the after effects of like Thor just being absolutely crushed that he died and everything in Endgame, or no, that wasn't Endgame, sorry, and that was Infinity War. Yeah. Oh
yeah.
man, it was space on the name there.
No.
Yeah, but it was the show from beginning to end, like every single episode left me on my seat. I don't think there was a single episode there that I was bored of, honestly.
No, there was because again it was a tight 6 episodes, so there wasn't need for filler. It got right to the story beats, and I think it did an excellent job. And a special shout out to Sophia Di Martino as Sylvie. I think she was probably arguably the standout. I know everyone's favorite Loki of the movie of the show is
Tom Hiddleston.
No, Crocky.
Yeah. Oh, which makes no sense. He's not a crocodile. He's an alligator.
But that's what they've nicknamed him. But I honestly, Sylvie was a standout character. I mean, you felt her plight, you felt for her character. She was a badass, and she did all that in her own words, a very uncomfortable outfit, which I'm still disappointed where we didn't get because I predicted it. And but then again, and again, spoilers into this. As I mentioned, this is 6 episodes of season 1. They did confirm at the end that there will be a season 2. Yeah. I was like, oh, Loki's gonna give her Enchantress gear, at some point, give her a more comfortable outfit. But didn't get it this season. But we will probably maybe the next one if they run into each other, because it ran the gambit of just trying to figure out who we eventually learned who Sylvie was.
Right.
And then, of course, the whole time Loki's still like, I'm taking down the what are they called, like the timekeepers?
TVA. Oh yes, timekeepers.
Well, specifically them. Like he wanted the ones in charge, and she was on that mission too, because we found out that they just ripped her from from her childhood on Asgard.
Right.
And like they haven't said, and I don't know if that's going to be a reveal or just kind of wanted to leave that lingering of what her the reason what her
event was.
Yeah, her event was. And I mean, could it be as simple? Like, there's still that theory out there, and I don't know if because she asked Ravonna, because she's the one that brought her in, and she was like, "I don't remember," but she kind of said that in a way that made you hint like she was just kind of fucking with her.
Yeah,
it'd be crazy if it was, because of all the Loki variants we've seen, she's the only female, and wouldn't that be crazy if that was alone the reason?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of speculation based on that, and it's really interesting because for the longest time, something that I've wanted for so long is a multiverse. I honestly thought that it already existed, but it's really cool that we could see the creation of that in the contents of this story. And it's one of those things I didn't expect it to stick just with everything that they did in WandaVision. But of course, WandaVision was a story about Wanda and her growing and dealing with grief and everything. And Loki, as much as it was about us having, Loki dealing with his stuff and like his ambitions and stuff like that, and kind of becoming filling these shoes of like kind of tentatively becoming a hero. It actually gave us like a really big hook for everything that's going to follow it, as far as the main MCU titles.
Right.
So it's just it turned out so fantastic, so much more than I thought it ever could. Of course, we're talking about this, spoiler.
Yeah.
When you get into time stuff and you've had the announcements that you've had, unless you're like not paying attention or you want to like keep spoilers to a bare minimum, don't watch trailers or look up news or anything like that. I have too many things on my social media feed that will give me that information, which probably might not be for the best. But so I already knew at this point that Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang for the Quantumania movie,
Right.
and so when we're dealing with time, he's always one of the big ones that pops up. And with the way that they left Endgame, I I think we might have talked about it whenever we were going through stuff like that at SFG and everything. But I was like, what do you bring in that's bigger than Thanos or just as big as Thanos? And I'm like, well, they fucked with the timeline, so I feel like Kang is a huge possibility.
Right.
And I mean, lo and behold, first appearance of Jonathan Majors, and it's technically, you can get into semantics, say it's technically not Kang. And I mean, I think he's titled as He Who Remains, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But man, I am so stoked, especially after this appearance. And it's great to have another amazing actor from Lovecraft Country be in this universe.
Right.
I'm above and beyond stoked for everything that this is going to cause. But it's interesting though, because I feel like that more people are raving about episode 5 than there are about episode 6. But
yeah,
to episode 6's defense, so much happened. We got so much information and so much cool shit.
Well, let me throw this at you real quick about that.
Yeah.
And you tell me if you've heard this one before. So the fans are divided about the villain.
What? The fans are divided.
Yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, Kane is also divisive amongst these fucking asshats out there. Called the fan base. They thought he was too silly. They thought he wasn't this is our big threat that's like Thanos level. Like, motherfuckers, this dude is, yes, he's insane right now because he's like, did you not listen to what he has said about his fucking existence?
Yeah.
And we know that the version we're going to get that is the potential world ender is a very different. We'll call him Kang for simplicity because he is a variant. He is like this character is amalgam of Kang, I think Immortalis or Immortalis,
Immortus.
Yeah, and
was
He
essentially
Who Remains,
the version of Jonathan Majors.
Right. And I said, He Who Remains was a whole separate character. They merged them together. This is, like I said, this is what Marvel does, though. It does take these, like, unique characters that they can use and maybe not necessarily need to be a separate character. And they blended them. And it worked. He was interesting. He owned that entire scene with him and Loki and Sylvie. Like, I'm excited. But again, fans got a bitch because, of course, episode 5, which was amazing, was just meme central, which is what all anyone, like 90% of what I've seen people raving about it is just the memes. But don't get it wrong. Yes, we all love Croaky. I know the alligator, everyone calls it crocodile. We love Richard E. Grant as classic Loki.
Oh man, that was the standout for me. Which is a shame because whenever we first got that last scene, I was more into I don't think they ever named him, but boisterous Loki. He was the Loki with the hammer and everything.
Right.
So yeah, I was more interested in that one, and they didn't turn out to do anything, but holy shit, Richard E. Grant as classic Loki was the huge standout for me of that episode.
Oh no, he was great. And it was but even like I got the list right here, at least of these two. Jack Veal as Kid Loki.
Yes.
Was great. And like that moment of like, so what was your moment? What was your thing? He goes, I killed Thor. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Which is the
Blade. That's why he was like the leader, whatever.
Which it was, that was the very blade he gave Loki, was the one that killed Thor. So I was like, again, this is like there's so much going on. But yes, everyone, and I love the alligator. I love alligator Loki too. That was great. And Throg, that we got
Yeah.
in there. Voiced by
Yeah, yeah.
voiced by Chris
Voice
Hemsworth.
is so good.
Which now, yeah, I teased you in Messenger, and now I'm going to tease you on the show. How does
Okay.
it feel that Throg made it onto the screen before Beta Ray Bill?
I knew it was bound to happen. I feel like at this point though, with Beta Ray Bill's convoluted past, it's easier just to bring in a Loki that is just a frog, instead of bringing in this entirely different character,
Right.
or a Loki. I
A
said
Thor.
Loki.
Oh, you
A
did.
Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Thor that is a frog.
Right.
And I love that he was reaching for Mjolnir.
That was just buried in the earth for some reason. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, and again, great episode. Seeing all the, and especially, yeah, like I said, Richard E. Grant with classic Loki, just looking like the comic, talking like he had been through all the adventures since the 19 whatever 50s that the comic came out of.
Yeah.
And yeah, he absolutely stole the show for sure. But
Oh,
people
yeah.
who said 5 was the best episode,
Mm-hmm.
again, I mean, and again, be a fan, like what you like about everything, but it's just like to downplay episode 6 and
Oh,
what it
yeah, I
meant
know.
and what it's building and just the tension of Loki and Sylvie fighting over, Sylvie trying to kill him, and then
Yeah,
eventually heard that stabbing, and you just see in one motion of Kang just going through, like, the shock of getting stabbed in the heart, and then the elation of I'm free, and you
Yeah.
just caused the event that I wanted. Because that moment where he
Right.
dropped that thing, he was like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, he hasn't felt that in decades, centuries. So
Right.
like, there was so much great acting, and yeah, it was an info dump for sure, but it's an important info dump. On top of
Yeah.
that, we got Mobius going back to the TVA, setting things right and just trying to get everything. And then that big, when Loki getting sent back, and after you saw the timeline truly branch, just huge, which, again, the implications are just all over the place. And just that cliffhanger of an ending of them of Mobius not knowing who Loki is making for a
Yeah.
very intriguing season 2.
Yeah. Just the fact that, like, Loki gets sent back to the TVA by Sylvie so she could kill Immortus, and whenever he gets there, he's like frantic, like, I gotta warn everybody. He runs into Mobius, who's like, he's trying to tell him all this stuff, and then Mobius is like, who are you? Like, basically, and then you find out that apparently this is a branch off version of the TVA, that didn't happen by the events, and then you see this giant fucking Kang statue, and it's like, oh my god. And the big in credit scene thing was just them announcing that there's going to be another season, which I think is pretty awesome. Though the next time we get Loki, from what I've seen or heard, is in Doctor Strange. So it's going to be Doctor Strange is going to be an interesting movie for sure.
Is he confirmed for Doctor Strange? 'Cause I have not heard.
Yeah.
That. Okay.
I think it just got confirmed a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be him and Wanda.
I knew Wanda.
Are confirmed. Yeah. If anything, cameos.
Right.
Right. So, because I don't foresee, like, Doctor Strange, this stuff happening and Doctor Strange not finding out about it. Like, you're fucking everything up.
I mean, the name of the movie is The Multiverse of Madness, so I mean, it's definitely, going to be dealing with the repercussions of what's going down now, and what could potentially lead, because again, things can always change. My understanding, and I also could be wrong, that this is potentially the last Doctor Strange film. I think Benedict Cumberbatch, and I could be wrong, things have changed. I heard this a while ago. He's not coming back for a third movie. Not to say he won't appear as Doctor Strange maybe in other movies, but I don't think we're going to get another solo film after this. Which, man, what could come out of that? Of not having a Sorcerer Supreme, as far as, like, if he dies. With all the other magic-based heroes out there, someone else kind of taking that reins could be very interesting. I've heard the name Brother Voodoo being thrown around.
Oh, man.
Since he recently got put in a new comic book. As we all know, Marvel likes to enhance their characters that they got plans for by making them relevant in the comics again first. and he opened a magic academy called Strange Academy with Doctor Strange. They're the co-heads of it, teaching all the young magic based kids. Basically, it's My Hero Academia magic. I'm pretty sure I talked about it before on the show. Really good book. So like again, but that's all pure speculation, nothing officially announced, and we've got so much more coming down the pipeline from Marvel. Let alone and I mean just Disney in general. Like again, everyone wants to bitch and complain, and I'm like, you know what? Like, because as I'm saying, like we're wrapping up talking about Loki and Black Widow next week or in the next few weeks. I think we're going to be probably talking about Bad Batch soon. I don't know how much longer it has, and it's been an
Yeah.
amazing show, and that's just on the Star Wars front. So I
Oh
mean,
yes, yes.
so
I
much good.
do I do look forward to, and I don't know if it's going to come as heavy, but the day that we have as much Star Wars stuff as
Right,
Marvel stuff, because I really like the transition of we have a series to watch, and by the end of the series, we have a movie coming out, you know.
right.
Um, and something else that is going to, I'm assuming, a direct result of the events of Loki, but we're getting a the Marvel What If series that's going to start
Yeah.
on August 11th, which is just another great thing that's coming out the week of my birthday. Um, but and I never knew how many episodes this was going to be, so I don't know when they finally put this up. But apparently, it's going to be 10 episodes, so
Okay.
it's going to roll for quite a long time.
Right.
So October 13th, I think, is when the last episode's going to come out. But
Interesting.
yeah, you've got Jeffrey Wright voicing Watu the Watcher, and I don't know if you know who Jeffrey Wright is, but he was one of the main characters in Westworld, and that's what I know him from the most. Phenomenal actor. Like I
Okay.
really enjoyed him, and honestly, cannot wait to see um, what what we get in the show. I feel like from the handful of things that we did see, we've got a lot of really cool shit that is not confirmed yet or
Right.
planned. We don't know that it's coming out as an episode. So I'm just really stoked to
Yeah.
see what all we
I
get.
said with 10 episodes, and they've only announced like maybe four plots. So like, there's a lot we don't even know is going to be dropping. So again, something else we will happily be breaking down once it wraps up. And I'm
Oh
sure if
yes,
we get a standout episode, it'll get brought up in our conversations throughout.
yeah.
So look forward to that. Look forward to like, man, there's this Disney alone. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming
Yeah.
out, but like Disney alone. You saw the trailer for Star Wars Visions, right?
Oh yes. Hell
Disney
yeah.
Anime Studios making Star Wars stories. Fuck yes. Super
I'm
hyped
bored.
for that. Super hyped for everything that's going to be coming out. And I hope y'all are super hyped to hear us talk about it because we are going to keep on rolling through all this. And if you liked what we talked about today, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share, all that goodness. Uh,
Do it.
Anything else before we wrap up here, buddy?
No, I think we hit about all the notes. We got our Loki and our Black Widow going on. Just man, keep being phenomenal. Keep your minds open for everything to come. And yeah, I'm fucking ready for this ride.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll catch y'all next time.
Peace.